Ok. Je suis en direct. Okay. Should be good. Where to? It works. Where is the chat? Okay, thank you. Ah. Okay guys, hello everybody, welcome to this first live ever for Tooltip P3 Extended. It is my first live, so sorry for the technical difficulties, also sorry for my poor English accent, but I will do my best. So in this live we are gonna play with the variable system for Tooltip P3 Extended. Oh yeah, there is a 15-second delay between the chat, between what you see and the system. So I will have to be very cautious with what you say in the chat. But okay, I have an echo. Ah, c'est ici. Okay. Sorry for that. Okay, I don't have an echo anymore. So, the variable system. Why the variable system? Because it's a central system for a lot of features, and I often see questions on Discord about some requests on how to do some things, and most of the time the variables could be an answer to resolve certain things to create in Extended. So I consider that you all know the basics, the very basics of Extended. You know how to create an item, you know how to create a quest, you know what a workflow is, and from that we are gonna quickly create an example item with a workflow using variables. I will create a quick item. I will quickly create a situation, and then I will explain to you how it works, and from that we are gonna explain further how the system of variable works. So I create an item, a black item with a little icon. My variable item. Yeah, sorry, my microphone is on the desk, so you will hear me typing on my keyboard. I'm sorry for that. For the the future live, I will try to put the microphone on a coffin, so it will be smooth. So I make it usable. Use me. So I have a workflow. In my workflow, I create an effect, a text. In this text, I say hello, quick variable resolution. I will then create a variable operation. It's in the expert section of the effect. I will let all the configuration as default, workflow as a source, and init as operation type. I will call my variable quick. I will put it on the value telcos, and then I will create another display text I will copy element content, paste element content. Okay, so I have a text. When I try to display a variable, then I change the value of the variable, and then I display again the variable value. So what it's gonna give me when I add it to my inventory, it's simply is gonna be marked in my chat. I see the first time Puig and the second time Telcos. So this is a way for me to introduce you to the variable. So what I try to do here on the first text is to use a variable. What's a variable? Is a simple way, is a place, a labeled place, a named place to store a value for you to use it later. As you can see, I try to use it in plain text with a text tag using a variable's syntax. You can learn more about all the text tags possible in Extended on one of the tutorial on CurseForge. But what happened is I declare a variable here, Puig égale Telcos, up, and then I display the variable again. And as you can see, the first time the system shows the variable as it, and the second time I have the good variable value. So the first things we can learn is if you try to use or to display a variable that is not yet initialized, it's gonna show the variable name as plain text. And what I said then, I initialize the variable with a value, and then it shows the value of the variable. So now I'm gonna explain to you one of the biggest concept of the variable is the scope, the variable scope. What if I use again the same object, the same item? I see that again, the first time I see the variable name, and second time I see the variable value. But the last time I could expect that the variable has been initialized to the Telcos value. So why the second time and the third time and so on and so on? Each time, the first time the variable seems to have been forgotten between the workflow execution. It's because the default source, so the default scope for the variables is for the workflow. That means that the variable only exists during the workflow execution. It will be created when I go to the effect variable operation, but the variable will be discarded when we reach the workflow the end. So I will quickly read the chat. Okay, so don't seem to have any problem with my pronunciation so far. So, donc, as I say, the variable source here for workflow, it can be useful if you want to manipulate a variable in the same workflow execution. It's something I think you're gonna use less frequently. The more frequent scope you're gonna use is the object scope. The object scope here, the object scope is contextual. That means that the object scope I'm going to try to store the variable value in the objects which is executing the workflow. So it can be an item or it can be a campaign. It cannot be a document or a cutscenes, because document and cutscenes are not objects that have how can I say a physical existence in the game. It's not. It's an item. Is something in your inventory, so you can store information in it. Campaign and quest steps are stored in your quest log, so we can store value in it, but a document or cutscenes are not something you can create, you can store variable in. It's something you can sense, you can understand. So when when I say sources objects, it means that it can be item or campaign. That means for campaign that if you have a workflow stored in a quest step or in a quest, it will always store the variable in the campaign. The campaign will be the contextual object for the workflow execution. And I think I've done that, I'm pretty sure, but if you are using the variable operation in a document workflow, as you can have workflow in document triggered, for example, when, for instance, when you click on a link in a document or in one of the two events that are that can be triggered for documents as the open trigger and close trigger, it will try to use the object which has displayed the document. So if you have an item displaying a document, and in that document you have a workflow setting up a variable with a source of objects, it will store the variable in the item which has displayed the document. So it's something, it's like, it will always, the system will always try to find the most interesting place, to the most logical place to store the variable. And there is a third source, is ActiveCampaign. It's a shortcut to allow you to store a variable in the ActiveCampaign. So you don't have to ask yourself, am I in a workflow triggered by an item, or am I in a workflow triggered by a document displayed by an item? If you want to store an information in a campaign, you can target the ActiveCampaign directly. And I think it will be the most common use for quest makers to use the ActiveCampaign as a source. So, as we saw, when I use the source workflow, as the variable is created each time the workflow is executed, the variable is cleared each time and then only is initialized. If I use the object source, the variable, as this workflow is launched through an item, the variable will be stored in the item. If I save and I use, I see that the first time the variable is not initialized, because it's the first time, because it's the first time we use the item since I have edited the item. The second time it's as telcos, and if I use it again, I see the variable has been stored in the item and can be used afterward. So that's the very basics of variable, how to store and where the information is stored. Now, what about the operation type? You have a lot of operation type. You have the init. The init will set the value to the variable only if there is no a variable with the same name yet in the source you try to register the variable. So if I let init here, but I try to put ellipse in the object, which I remind you is the item, I always have telcos because the variable exists in the item, it's not erased. All variables that are stored in an item will be exchanged if you give this item to someone. No? is something very, very, very interesting. So if you use a variable system, I will do this example just later. If you use the variable system to handle item charge or a gun ammunition, for instance, and you give this item to someone, it will keep the state of all the variables stored in this item. So now I want to have ellipse in my quick variable, so I will use the operation set. The operation set will always override the variable value, even if the variable is already present in the source. So now I have telcos, that was the first call before I set the variable, and then now I have ellipse in my variable. The four other operations are the mathematical operation. The mathematical operation, I used to do mathematical operation. Yeah, so you can make an addition, a subtraction, a multiplication, and division. It's an operation based on the value that the variable already have. And it uses 0 if the variable is not it does not exist yet, or if the variable exists and doesn't have a number stored in it. So if I make an addition of 10 in my variable quick, as for now I have ellipse stored in my variable, I will have ellipse and then 10. And if I use it again, I had 10, now I have 20. So the system is made that there is no possible error, calculation error, mathematical error. If you try to divide a text by a number, it will work. It will always consider 0 as a value. If you try to make an addition to a variable that is not initialized, it is not existing, it will use 0 as the base value. That's it for the variable operation. Now we are going to, I'm going to show you a more useful, maybe, test, or more effect, sorry, not a test, an effect, but an effect using tests, is the variable dynamic value. In the previous effect, we can store or make a manipulation of the variable in a very simple way. We can we can store plain text, or we can store a number and make a mathematical operation in this on this number. But I think that most of the time, what people want to do is to maybe do operation on information that we can gather from the game. And for that, maybe, I hope you already used at least once the condition system. In the condition system, as you know, you have a lot of possible operands that are evaluated values, and all these evaluated values actually are available in this variable dynamic value. So I will, in my variable quick, again I can change the scope of the variable. Oh, it will be interesting to see what happens if, as we know, I already have a quick variable stored in my item. But then, in the same workflow launched through the same item, I will declare a variable with the same name, but with the workflow sources. I think it's just gonna override the variable on the item level. Then we will see. And I will store, I will store the target health point. I think I have that. Character, no. Unit test, no. Unit value, name, sex, classification, health. Okay. Player. If I use my item, what I will see, 20. Oh yeah, I let the text just before the variable assignation, so I will try again. I have my health, so as I said, it will be overriding the variable stored in the item level. And I think it won't touch the variable stored in the item. If I cleared this effect, what happened when I try... yes, I'm going to talk to you about that just now. What happened now if I use this workflow? He will try to... how can I say in English? It will try to evaluate the variable, but it will do it in a certain order. And I think that it will always try to resolve, that was the word I was searching, resolve the variable first using a variable in the workflow scope. Then it will try to resolve the variable in the object source, so the item or the campaign launching the workflow. Then it will try to resolve the variable in the active campaign. And if it can't resolve all these places, it will show the plain value, the plain variable name. So if I use, as we can see, I have my hello 20, so I still have my previous value stored in my item. So I can confirm that now if I change a value of my variable quick, I misspelled it, in the workflow source, it won't override the variable in the other two scopes. That means the object or the active campaign. So there is really an order way that the system is trying to resolve variables. It could be something, I understand, it could be something complex to understand, but it's also something very powerful because, as I say, I have a variable in my item, but maybe in a certain little case, I want to override this value without losing the previous value stored in my item. So this source workflow can also always be used to quickly and simply override a value without losing the source. So I have all the evaluated value possible in my conditions. And what can I say now? As you can see, I don't have prepared this live at all, so I'm really in plain improvisation. So, oh yeah, where can I use all these variable text tag? Well, you will have the list, the complete list in the guide on CurseForge, but I can show you already that there is so special places where you can place these values, these text tags. One of the most common place you will, I think, use it is here on the tooltip of your item. So if I place my the variable quick here, I will have my 20 value in my item tooltip. Again, the variable text tag here is resolved exactly the same way as in the workflow. That means that if the variable did not exist in the item, it will search then in the next step of the resolution, so it will search it in the current campaign. So you can have an item which is not an inner item of a campaign, but this item is displaying variables from your active campaign. It's not something forbidden at all. Another place very interesting to store, to display variables could be in a document showed by this item, because there is a transfer of all stored variable in the object source when you display the document. That is something very interesting. So I will create a document. I will say in my document, hello quick. If I preview it, I will say that, yeah, of course, in the preview, it can't resolve the variable, because the variable is not linked to an object context yet. But if I had this variable quick in my active campaign, it will have displayed the value, because there is no need to for the active campaign to trigger the display of the document to be able to search in the active campaign. So I save my document. In my workflow, I will each time place a random value from 1 to 100 in my variable. Don't forget to place it in the source object, so my item. And of course, I use the effect to display my document. It is here. Okay. When I use my document, I say 8, I see 30. Okay, as you can see, there is a random number each time I use my document. So with this, I will show you something I think pretty interesting. So as you can see, any variable text tag placed in the document will be resolved. First, it will try to resolve it by the object displaying the document. So it can be an item, or it can be your active campaign, or quest, or quest step, and it can also be your active campaign, even if your active campaign is not triggering the document. As I said, the active campaign is always used as a last resort to try to resolve a variable. So what can I say? Someone asked me, opened a ticket to ask how can he do a signing system to have a document that the player could sign and then give to another player. It's a very interesting, I think, use case. But first, I will read some of the chat. Hello there. Oh, I talk too fast. Oh, sorry. I will try to talk a little slower. Okay, so I have my item. My item display a document. I will not initialize a variable here. I will go to my document. I will say, please sign here. I will place a link to a workflow 1. Well, you can say here, sign. So it will create a little text, a little link. So if people, for those who don't know, you can have link in in your document, and this link will trigger workflows with the same name when the player click on it. So I will create a workflow 1. My workflow will store variable operation in the object. The system will try to determine to find what is the object in this context, and will in this context say, okay, I know the object is the item or the campaign triggering the display of the document, and I will initialize. Here I will leave init because I don't want for another player to be able to override my signature. And I will, in my quick variable, set telcostras. And even better, I will set TLP player full name. I don't know. I don't even know all of my own text tag. I think it's full name. Yeah. And TLP player full. It's just TLP player full. Okay. So it will be dynamic. If I give a blank document to someone, he will be able to sign it himself. Okay. I save. Please sign document. Okay. I will go it step by step. So I go back in my item. Maybe I won't call the variable prick because I already have a prick variable stored in my item. So I will call it sign. And I will, in my item, display in the description, I will say signed by sign. Okay. So I will try that. What can I see? I see in my tooltip that the variable is not yet initialized, so it will be the plain name. I know that there is a current ticket open on CurseForge for people asking to be able to have a default value for a variable, or a way to quickly initialize a variable on item reception in the inventory. But I will give you something I think better in the first place, which is a way for you in a future patch, if you have a text tag for a variable and you put two, is this comma, 2 points? Colon. A double colon followed by a value. This value will be displayed if the system can't resolve the variable. So it won't work here. It's not coded yet, but it will be. I will be implemented soon because it's something I think it's very interesting. So I don't have an initialization for my variable, but if I click on my sign up, I can see signed by telcostras. Everything works so far. Okay. Yes, something that can maybe, I think it's obvious, but maybe some people wouldn't know it's obvious. The variable telcostras here, so the variable sign stored in my item is stored in this item, this one. We agree that if I add a new unit of this item in my inventory, it will be again another variable. Huh? So it's not a global variable shared between all the items of the same type. It's something that is linked to what we call the instance of this item in my inventory. So you can have a signed tract that you give to a lot of people, and each one can sign your contract and give you the contract back. Okay, now what I would like to do is, the problem now is if I use again my item, I still see please sign here with the sign. It's not something pretty. So I will need another document, because I don't have for now a way to condition the display of this document to not display this part if the variable is already initialized. So I will have a please sign here. In my second document called doc signed, and this one will simply do a variable value resolve. So it will try to resolve it based on, first, as usual, the workflow displaying the document, then the source object displaying the document, and third, the current active campaign. So as you can see here, as always in the preview, you won't ever have your variable resolved in the preview, not on the workflow or the object scope, only if there is a signed variable in your current campaign. So now I need in my item, in my workflow, actually to display my document signed. Okay, great. But I need in reality to condition these two effects. So I can control click or right click edit effect condition. So the first one, display document which displays the document unsigned, need to be conditioned only if the variable in the object, the variable signed, there is a little trick here, is equal to actually nil. Why? Because nil is a way to indicate that a variable is empty, not really empty, but is non-existing. Nil is the term used in the Lua programming language, which is the programming language used to create a UI add-on in World of Warcraft. And when a value is missing, it will be placed at nil. And as I try to interpret this variable as a string value, because I used a variable string value. So as you can see in the tooltip, it explained exactly what I'm trying to explain to you. If the variable does not exist or can't be reached, return the string nil. So you can test if a variable is missing by test it equals to nil, simply as that. So if the object sign is equal to nil, it will show the first document. And if the string value from the object variable signed is not equal to nil, it will display the other document. I will try. I have an already signed document here. I use it. I have my document signed, Telcostras. And if I use my second item, which is new, I don't have a signature, I can click sign. Before that, maybe what I should do is in this second document, in the first document, the unsigned one, what I could do is when I sign the document, maybe I could reopen the document. So document display. A document in a workflow can display itself. I will display the signed document, of course, in order to refresh the UI of the document. So now I have my document, and when I click signed, my document is signed, and this has been stored in my item. If I give this item to someone, this person, this player, will see Telcostraz as the person who has signed this document. So this is a way to create contracts or something, because I know a lot of people have said to me that they are creating campaign to use as recruitment process for the guild. And I think this is a very good idea, and with this kind of feature you can really create a real contract system that you can sign, and then you give the item back to your guild leader, and he can store it in a safe, and he will always have he will always have a proof that you have signed the contract. Okay, I will read the chat. Could you use this to put a player name into the campaign in the way RPGs do it? Yes, of course. You can use I will try to find it. It was in the second one. No, the second one it was signed, but I can't display any of the variable. There is a set of built-in text tags for all these places, and this is in the guide on CurseForge. I don't know them exactly because there is a lot of them, but you can insert the player name, or TRP name, race, class. You can display his name in a lot of ways. You can only display his first name, but you can also display his last name, first name, last name, and all the full title and first name and last name. Ellipse has answered to you already. Sorry, I'm on the chat for comments at 10 p.m. and 2 minutes. Vacation didn't mod anyone. First stream. It's got several. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Someone is waiting for the infinite loop. It won't happen because infinite loop is bad. So infinite loop, what is infinite loop? It's, for instance, I have a workflow here, workflow 1, great. I create another for workflow, workflow 2, great. My workflow 1 is triggering in the same object. It won't work here because I am in a document, and if I have the source object, it will try to find the workflow in the item. So I will try again in my item. I create. I can't because I'm in normal mode. So I have to convert my variable, my item first, into expert mode. To be honest with you, you can give me your opinion on this in the chat. Do you think that this normal and expert mode is still relevant? I made this choice at first, not to overwhelm the player when he uses the system, but maybe I think that for now, maybe a player going past the quick creation. I will keep the quick item creation always, but maybe I think that if someone is going to the normal mode of an item, maybe he won't be as shocked to see that he can have multiple workflows, because this is the only change that there is between, almost the only change there is between the normal and the expert mode. The expert mode allows you to have multiple workflows in your item, but also to have the possibility to select which workflow is used when you use your item and which workflow is used when you destroy. On stack destroy, it means that it's really when you destroy a stack, when you drag and drop a stack out of your inventory and you click destroy. It's not if the item is consumed through the item consume effect. Because I consider that if you are in a workflow that you use the item consume effect, you already are in a workflow, so you can just after this effect put another effect if you want to react to the item consumption. So I have a workflow 2. I have on use. We are agreed that here I'm trying to make my game crash. Okay, it's because someone asked me that in the chat, so I will execute myself. Okay, on use, triggers, wait for 1 second, so I won't have my game crashing, because I will have a little delay. I wait for 1 second, I play a text, maybe I play a text before, I play a text, then I wait for 1 second, then I will use the run workflow from the source object, which will be workflow 2. And in workflow 2, what I will do, I will display hello Solania, and I will call again the workflow from the same object, so this item on use, which is my first workflow. What happened if I use my item? I will have an infinite loop that you can't stop except by reloading your UI. If you destroy your item, it won't stop, because destroying your item won't destroy the workflow currently running in the memory. So that's why I already said that making a loop is bad. I hope Silora is looking at the stream right now. Making a loop is bad because you have side effects that maybe you don't have in mind, because you don't always have all of the things that happened in the background. You don't are aware of that. Okay, so I have to reload my interface to stop this loop. Okay. I will see if there is a question in the chat. Why not? Yes, done. Okay, so maybe I have an option to create an expert item directly. Yes, yes, this is a good idea. Yes, Ellipse, it didn't crash because I put a delay of 1 second between each call. Okay, but if I did not place, I will do that for the end of the live stream. We will finish with a beautiful crash. If I didn't put the delay, it would have a crash. I think it would have freeze. It would have frozen my UI. So, do you have other question? If not, I think I think I've said to you pretty much everything there is to know about variables. I know I didn't show you some example with storing variables in the campaign because it's exactly the same as storing the variable in the item, and it's more complex to create a campaign and to use it because I have to reinitialize the campaign each time I want to show you an example. Okay, I hope that this first live wasn't catastrophic for you to follow. I know that I really have a very bad English accent when I trying to concentrate on of what I say instead of how I said it. So we will stop here this live stream, and I think I will do other live stream later because I'm pretty happy of how it goes. So thank you all for coming. I really didn't expect to have so much people live. 8 people live. Yes, as Ellipse is telling you in the chat, don't forget to like. Oh, no, not very like. Like is not necessary, as I don't really expect to gain any money with this kind of stream. But one thing very interesting is to subscribe and activate the little bell on the UI of YouTube to be notified when there is a live that is planned. I will always say when the live occurred on Twitter and on Discord, so you can follow me on Twitter. It's Telkostras. It's my handle on Discord. And to answer to Alexius, yes, this live stream will be available in VOD right after the live, I think, the time YouTube will process the video. And yes, I could attach an export of what I created, but I heavily edited the item to be able to crash my game to end this live stream, so I don't have the original item I created. But feel free, anyone watching this live stream again, to create all the items I created in this video and place it in quickly export them and place the serial in website like Pastebin and share it in the comments. Okay, I will leave you there. I will delete the delay, so I will have a workflow, calling workflow, and I think I will crash my UI, and this will be the end of everything. The end of the world as we know it. 3, 2, 1, use. Stack Overflow. Okay, the game is the game is prevented me to crash my game. Okay, yes, it's actually it's quite logical. If you want a little technical information explanation, when a function in Lua calls another function, it creates what we called a method pointer that is placed on a stack. And if in this method you will call another method, it will place another pointer on the stack. So if your method is calling infinitely a method that is calling itself, so we call that a recursive loop, it will place pointers on the stack, and once the stack is full, because the stack has a maximum size, the stack is full, so the error is Stack Overflow. That's why we call that a Stack Overflow. Okay, so I will leave you here and wish you a happy day or a happy night, a good night, whatever is to your time zone. See ya!